Hello and welcome to the Stringer Podcast number 7. 7 is a special number for me. I have 7 letters in my first name, my middle name, and my last name. I like the number 7. I like number 7 so much that we have a very special guest for this week. It's Duane Watson, at Duane Watson on Twitter, at Duane Watson on Instagram. And he has such an interesting story. His life has taken him in so many different directions. He started as a writer. He went into the music industry. He has great stories about that and then head into sports. I don't want to give it all away. So before I spoil the whole thing, Kylie.
Oh, hey.
How's it going?
Good. Just looking at Edward's face on the computer screen.
We're recording the opening in an edit suite in which we booted an editor out of. We're trying something a little bit different. And Raheem Edwards, fullback for Toronto FC, is staring right at us. Kind of strange.
Yep. All right.
What do you got going on this weekend, Kylie? Big weekend ahead.
Yeah, since Duane was in the music industry, I thought I'd get some concerts going to start the Friday.
Concerts. I love music.
This is a band I told you to listen to a while ago. You probably haven't because you don't listen to me very often.
I'll start, I promise.
Glorious Sons. They're from Kingston, Ontario.
Ooh, a little Ontario local.
Yeah, his voice, like the lead singer, his voice is amazing.
Milky.
So amazing.
Oh.
So that's at a Phoenix concert.
I love Phoenix Concert Theater. We actually reference it in today's podcast, so listen for that.
There you go. And then Saturday at the AGO, it's called Canzine, where all these independent artists who make, they're kind of like magazines, but they don't really want to call them magazines because they don't sell them publicly.
Okay.
So just all these artists coming together, doing workshops, talks, and it's free.
AGO.
At the AGO.
Bringing out some
It's on
wicked,
fire lately, so go check it out.
Wicked Saturday happenings for you at the AGO.
Sunday, steam whistle yoga. I know you don't want to do yoga, but yoga's pretty good for you. Okay?
Steam whistle.
Steam whistle.
Steam whistle yoga.
Yes.
It's like you're burning off everything that you did to yourself on Saturday night.
So tickets are $15. 100% proceeds go to Ride to Conquer Cancer.
Oh, beautiful.
And then you get 10% off brunch at SoCo Kitchen and Bar.
Are you yogi?
Not really,
Not
but like
really?
sometimes I really need to stretch.
Maybe we'll check it out.
Yeah, I'm bad at that.
That can be our Sunday.
Yeah.
Well, it can be your Sunday. I'm in Atlanta this
Namaste
Sunday.
on Sunday.
Namaste on Sunday. That's right. Big weekend ahead for Kylie. Sounds exciting. I'm going to be in Atlanta for, 2 nights. So, hey, if you're in Atlanta, you know a good spot to eat. Let me know. So, without further ado, we bring you episode 7. Duane Watson. Kylie. Cue that sax. Kind of.
Far from home, right?
It's
you're like right over there.
I'm in Distillery. Yeah. Sweet. So it's like 25 minutes. I walked a few times now, which is nice.
Yeah.
Like it is basically a coffee. Like when I get myself a big coffee, by the time I get here, it is done. And then I walk up and I'm like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to go.
Kate Burness in Distillery at all?
Do I see Kate Burness? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
no, I don't. Oh. Kate, let me think.
Uh-oh.
No.
I wasn't interested in that.
It was like 2012, I think, when we first met, Kate and I, because, 2012, Toronto Marlies, this is how I like, my whole timeline is based on this one event, and if it happened before or after it. 2012, Marlies went to the Calder Cup, which is the AHL Finals, and everyone kind of piled on board because it's June, and in June, Jays weren't where the Jays have been the last couple of years. Raptors weren't. Leafs had been done for ages. 2012 was like TFC's worst season to date. And it's the first time Toronto ever experienced June hockey. That was the big selling line that everyone was using. And the Marlies had been selling out every single game, which was great for them. You get 8,500 people in Rico, and the atmosphere kind of blows up. And so that's where I met Kate. I'm almost positive. Our scrums went from me and the coach, because no one ever showed up, to now like I'm being elbowed out by all the cameras. But it was kind of neat for me because we're all on a journey, right?
Yeah.
And I was early in my journey looking to the people that I was like, okay, this is how they do this, and this is how they prepare, and this is the angles they're taking.
Right.
And I would say that was the beginning for me of learning that a scrum isn't just question and answer. A scrum is storytelling,
right?
Because you are trying to carve out your piece of the story with the questions you ask,
right?
Not just you gave up a goal in the third period,
right?
How did you rally the guys? Just to ask the question,
which people do.
But
sometimes people
do early. I think
some people do it to like build their story, but sometimes people just ask questions for the sake of asking questions.
And they should. We do not need 12-minute scrums for the coach.
No,
seriously, ask your shit.
We need more cliches. Like, give me a break.
Really? What can you say about the
Both
guys
teams tried hard
bonding together in that room? I hate it when the answer is already in the question.
Oh, I know.
Where they're like,
I hate that. It's like, why ask when they don't lead your answer.
Lead them. And
but that goes back to poor storytellers. Because they want that to be the answer they want to put into the block.
It was a goalie that went on to play in the NHL for many years that called me out on that and said...
Butterfly style? Like, what was the style?
You were butterfly? He was definitely butterfly. Okay. He worked in Toronto. He progressed to the Leafs in Toronto and then went off through the NHL. He had said very, very nicely... But he said, Clay, I was on the ice. I was the only guy on the ice for the full 60 minutes.
Right.
I know what happened. Just ask me my perspective.
Right.
And I was like, oh, yeah, it's a really good idea. But I had just been conditioned to lead them because in my head I'm making it easier on them.
Right.
But really, he just wanted to be
sometimes you have to lead them because you have to make it easier for them because sometimes the answer is so bad, you need more than just the 3 words.
You do.
So you feel if I give you a bit more to go off of, you can give me something back,
or
right?
follow-up questions. I think the art of the follow-up in today's scrum age has been lost.
Oh, for sure.
And it's not always bad to just be like, oh, well, what about from this side or this perspective or this, a couple more words. And then like, oh, now I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Now I get you. The other pet peeve I have, I think, are reporters who want to prove all the research they did with their question.
Yeah.
When I compared the last 9 games, I looked at your power play percentage, or, in basketball, I looked at the three-pointer.
No, you're right. It's like, I did my research. Listen to my stats. And everyone's asleep by the time the answer comes. I know.
Number one rule we're always taught is you are not the story.
Oh, agreed. But a lot of media members don't see that. And it's like they want to just kind of show off, right? Because that's their opportunity to kind of do that. It's like you doing your story, whatever it's a written or video, whatever. I may not see it, but like now I'm in front of my peers. Hey, look at me! Bang, bang, bang.
Do you think it's a social media age? Maybe that promoted that because now the reporters are now pseudo celebrities, 100,000 followers.
I look at some journalists, and it's really funny because I started as a writer, so I was in scrums a lot.
Me too.
Go Raiders.
Go Raiders.
But it's like...
We're a team of 2.
But what's funny is that some writers... I mean, I'm not trying to be like, oh, I played sports, I'm a jock, whatever. But some writers aren't from that vein. Like, they're writers. Or they are... I look at some people and I'm like, these are the guys in school who the athletes used to bully and pick on, and now they're back in this position where they kind of have the power.
They're bullying and picking on the athlete.
Well, not necessarily that, but they're trying to like flex. It's like, hey, I'm just as cool as you are now. I see that sometimes. I think that's part of the digital age too.
Interesting, I think, damn these cell phones and their power. What are we going to do? Duane Watson on the podcast.
Hey.
What's up, brother?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for coming. I had to call you
Clayton for the first time probably ever. The other day, I'm like, oh, I'm doing this podcast with. I only call you Chancellor. Like, I only call you Chancellor. So it's like, oh, there might no Chancellors. I'd say you're actually there.
See, that's harkening back to my early days of being on camera and reporting.
Right.
Because it was my first gig with MLSE was Your Buddy Chancellor.
Right.
Like, meet me at the Marlies. It's Your Buddy Chancellor. And that was because... Twitter was a new thing. It was 2009, 2010.
Yep.
Everyone's now being called by their handles. Monica Platek, who's now with CBC, was Monica with a K.
Right.
And there was Raptor Space Cat, was our good friend Cat. Akil was always Akil Augustine.
But I kind of like
played it straight.
Because Chancellor works, it's also like Chancellor.
It's like the Chancellor.
That's why I like the name. And I actually wrecked your intro, by the way. Sorry.
You didn't wreck my intro. You made my intro.
Wow.
I was saying to Kylie before you came in, legit, I am so excited for Duane to be here. I don't feel like...
Did you really say that?
Yeah.
I said if anybody, he could blow me off because he does radio and he is a big producer and he's huge into the basketball Toronto scene and I'm nothing to him. And so the fact that you agreed to this, I'm going to fanboy for a second. It means a lot.
Do you accept check or PayPal? Which you prefer?
Interac e-transfer.
Okay.
Sponsored by Royal Bank. No. No sponsors yet, but hey, we're waiting.
We're open.
Yeah, we're open for business.
Hey, no, honestly, I'm happy to be here. Like, I mean, I think I love having a conversation. And we never get to do it enough, right?
No, and they're always in snippets.
I know. It's like, hey, how's your weekend? Bang, bang, bang. Okay, we got a meeting. You got to go.
Or we like dip into it. Like, especially when we're all working in the 307 studios. Yeah. You had your producing room or your story room. And I dip in, and I always found that it wasn't just hello. It was a solid 7-minute conversation, which, as you said, could have been more. You're like the one that got away. It always could have been more, but I got whisked away.
And we're here
by the changing tides, and here we are.
In your new digs.
In my new digs.
Thanks
it's. I apologize to anyone listening.
If I'd known, I would have brought a housewarming gift.
You are my housewarming gift.
Wow.
I'd like
to always this thick with the compliments.
I'd like to point out. Okay, one more for now. Sweets. We're gonna get to how you got that nickname because I have no idea.
Okay.
Duane Watson wearing a Lego T-shirt.
It's actually a puffy Lego T-shirt.
Oh my goodness! You can touch it. I'm not going to because I have enough warrants out for my arrest right now. I don't need another one. But way to throw it back in a way that no one does. Like, everyone's going to wear their Captain Picard Star Trek T-shirt, but people aren't going to wear their Lego. Come on, know where it originated, folks.
Hey, man, Lego was like a big building block for me as a kid. Like,
no pun intended.
Yeah, actually, there was a pun intended. But I mean, like, you know, just creating and building whatever you wanted to do. And I think that kind of like, you know,
shaped.
Yeah, it helped shape me.
I too was a big Lego guy. And I remember I never got the cool kids. I felt got the sets.
Yeah.
Where it was like, you can buy, I'm going to go back to Star Trek because I'm a Star Trek fan. But you could buy like the Star Trek.
Which Star Trek are you?
I'm a TNG guy,
good,
Next Generation.
Good.
That was really where I caught on. And I kind of branched from there.
Yeah.
I just wasn't, my family was in the situation where I get sets, but I get a lot of hand-me-down blocks.
Yep.
And you just get your generic tins of 800 random pieces or whatever. And I remember building, that was something, I built the Star Trek Enterprise. And I was so proud of myself because I didn't need no set. I got it. It's in my head.
You know what? It's funny because sets are cool, but like it's just structure, right? I mean, like once you build a set the first time, you break it apart and build whatever you want. I think my parents... No, I know. I still have I had like a Lego suitcase, which opens up and there's like a big tray and has the Lego thing on it. It's still my parents' house right now. But once you build the set, it's just a bunch of blocks.
True.
So there's no real advantage anymore, right?
I think he was training kids to build IKEA furniture. That's right,
it
because
didn't really help me that
much. You'd get your little book, you get your set, you get your little book, and it's step by step how to build it. And then now I put together the Ernstberg unit.
Is there any IKEA furniture in here?
Perhaps that, which also was gifted to me. Our supplies cabinet.
Assembly was already done.
Yeah, it was. Assembly was no assembly required. Actually, the desk we're working on right now had sat in my storage locker for I think 3 years. I kept the screws because I've learned through moving through my 20s, always keep the screws.
Yep.
But I had no idea. It took me probably 3 times as long as it would to put it together. I'm like, I thought this would be so easy. And literally, it was just 2 metal legs and 2 pieces of wood. But it took me 90 minutes. Yeah, hey. It was terrible.
We have our strengths. We have our strengths, man. It's okay.
Where'd you grow up? You said that your Lego suitcase is still at your parents' place?
Markham.
Yeah,
like on the border,
represent.
Like represent. Yeah. 905. Whereabouts?
Unionville.
I went to Unionville High School for a year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to work across the street at the plaza where the...
frills and everything?
Yeah, like I used to work at Best Buy when it used to be like a CD store back then. But yeah.
Awesome.
See?
I feel like, you know how you can get nationality to a country, you can get a passport if one of your parents was born there? My mom spent 15 years living on 48, which is Markham Road.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so there's I'm into Markham crowd.
We'll give you a pass.
Just because my mom lived there and she has her Markham passport.
Yeah. I was in Scarborough like till I was 4 and then moved to Markham and like saw it all flourish. And now Pacific Malls by my parents' house, which has changed the dynamic of the place. But,
yeah, definitely.
But yeah.
Your parent, is it the same house that you lived in, that your parents were in? Holy smokes. See, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is crazy.
My mom.
Get out.
You don't think they'll leave?
No, I mean, like, you know, you don't need to be cutting grass and shoveling snow anymore, right? Because, you know, but.
My mom's on an acre. My parents bought a house on an acre lot when I was 1. They had me. They lived in an apartment. Then they moved. Actually, crazy story. Their best friends lived in the house, and their best friends divided the lot, which was 2 acres, built right next door, and sold my parents that house. And
are they still in the house?
No, the neighbors aren't still there. But my mom is still in our house. 32 years. I don't want to date myself too much.
Too late.
32 years. But it's weird. Going home is now completely different for me than it is for many of my friends. And you can probably relate in that way.
Yeah, because it's the exact same house, exact same neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like a lot of members still attached to that because you go, it's like the same area, right?
And it kind of messes me up every time my mom changes something. I'm like, yo, this is not the color my room was when I moved out. How dare you?
Still have stuff in the basement, though.
Do you?
Yeah.
I was given probably 4 years ago, I was told to move it or lose it.
That's fair.
She cut me off hard.
My mom has some stuff. She tends to keep stuff around, and like
she's
they got
like
lots
that?
of space, so it's okay. So yeah, nothing super crazy.
Sweets. Where did it come from? I haven't even asked you this ever in all of us knowing each other.
That's just the reality.
I was just told, but it's first of all the greatest nickname because it's nice. People call me like asshole. That's not the greatest nickname.
Yeah.
Sweets though.
It's funny because some people only know me as Sweets. So and someone saw like my wife and they're like, yeah, you're Sweets' wife, right? Like they can't even say, hey, you know Duane.
You're Mrs. Watson.
Yeah, and it's really funny. But yeah, I mean, Sweets, I have a sweet tooth.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just that.
And you know the 2-bite brownies?
Yes.
So when they first came out,
they're really 1-bite brownies. Let's be honest.
Of course, exactly. So when they first came out, I think we'd order food for an office at lunch one day, and then like I think it was, I don't know what it was, but they sold them with a pack of with it was Swiss Chalet, but I don't know, whatever, right? And they had the bag, and I was eating them, and I basically knocked off a bag really quickly. And it's like, dude, what's wrong with you? And also because I'm a nice guy, I think it worked because of Sweets. But it was like this girl from New York's like, why do they call you Sweets? Are you some kind of a pimp or something? I'm like, no, actually, I'm just a nice guy, but I'll take that.
And I like fur coats. Like,
yeah,
come on.
exactly.
You can't knock a fur coat on a cold winter Canadian day.
Sweets, I'm sorry. Wow, you did that. We know what kind of pimp he'd be.
That's not what you're supposed to do.
You're applauding. You're applauding.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Oh, yeah. Shit. So growing up in Markham,
yes,
you got Sweets. You wanted to be a writer,
but I wasn't Sweet. No.
Oh my God. Yeah. You weren't Sweets until you're in the office.
No, but I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a child psychologist, like when I was younger.
That kind of, I don't know. It kind of fits in. I think it fits in on the whole storytelling thing.
Possibly,
definitely,
right.
Because you want to peel back the layers, and you want to get down. You want to understand the causes for why you are the way you are. Not just you're great at throwing threes, but you know what I mean. There's layers there.
I didn't know for a while what I wanted to do. Actually, it's really funny. Even like in high school, I took a year off. I worked. Didn't know. My parents were like, you got to go to school. I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. And I took a corporate communication course at Centennial College, which was really bullshit. Yeah, I did that for a year. It was a tier.
I was extending my adolescence. That's what I was actually doing.
I'm like, this is not interesting. And then I was at Centennial, and they had like a radio station there, and the school paper was there, and this like punk kilt wearing skinhead guy was like the editor. And I'm like, at that point, like hip hop was really kind of emerging as an art form, but people don't really know. But I'm like, hey, I want to do some reviews, whatever. And he's like, okay, cool. Here's a couple of CDs. Write a review and give it back to me like in a week. So I wrote the review, and I'm like, okay, here are the CDs. He's like, no, keep them. I'm like, what do you mean keep them? He's like, no, like the record company sends them. And I'm like, it's someone's job to sit in offices and send people free CDs? That's kind of interesting. I've befriended a couple guys who did a radio show, and one guy was doing a production engineering course at this place called Harris Institute for the Arts. And I'm like, I've been a fan of music, but I never looked at it as an industry, right? And they had a recording arts management course, which had like, publishing, marketing, all these different things. I'm like, this seems interesting. So I took the course and graduated, and all these different facets of the music industry were at my disposal. Interned, worked retail in Markham, as I mentioned. And so I kind of like, writing was kind of my entry point, right? Like, I mean, I knew big bad music industry, cool guy, but how do you fit in, right? And I was the writer, so I was kind of in the mix. I was part of the industry, although I was like on the fringe kind of thing. Then I started getting into working at record companies, and it kind of evolved from there. But then once I got the label job, which happened pretty quickly, I stopped writing.
That was
because it's like, I can't work for a label and be writing
and
reviews. It's like
reviews.
So
it doesn't make sense. You got tinted glasses on the whole time.
Yeah, sure.
I love this, and no one can see me except the two in the room with me. I was smiling ear to ear, and this is why. First of all, Almost Famous is probably one of my favorites, top 5 movies of all time.
Okay.
If you haven't seen it, Kylie, have you seen it?
No.
Yeah, it always happens. Yes, Kylie, put it on the list.
I had an interesting conversation with a dude last night at a wedding, and he's like, he wanted to see Fearless, and it wasn't on Netflix, and it wasn't on demand. So how do you see a movie on iTunes or Spotify? Like, music is there. If I name a band, you can find it. It's there. You can watch it. But if it's not I want to watch The Matrix the other day, the first one, it's not on Netflix. How do I watch it? Unless I pirate it.
Buy the DVD. No, is that your thing?
Yeah, but what if you can't find? What if you can't find the DVD? Like, that's The Matrix. It's easier. Right. What if it's
very good point?
You know what I mean? So it's just interesting that for music, the platform is built where you can listen to it and you pay the royalty, but for film, it's you pay for the rights and you have it. So now where people aren't necessarily getting DVDs, how do you get stuff that you can't see?
I imagine, and this is just me talking out my backside right now, but I imagine the reason why Netflix, for instance, I know that they don't have, in Canada, they don't have The Matrix. In the US, they do, because I was just there and I watched The Matrix while I was there. This is literally something I went through recently.
Right.
I imagine they sell digital rights. Right. So I bet you it's like a Crave or I don't know all of them.
Right.
But that's a great point. If it's not on the two major ones, I'm not subscribing to 7 different outlets and then have to search each of them individually. Oh my goodness, you just broke the industry.
Someone needs to build a platform where you could, stream it and then pay a royalty. That way you have access to everything. Imagine what we do for indie and foreign films. Because I'm not knocking Netflix's selection because they have stuff, but you want to watch whatever you want to watch.
Android boxes.
True. I just got one, actually.
Did you? Okay, so explain. We found it earlier today. I am
technically not so great.
Just impotent. I am technologically impotent. Android box.
Basically, whatever you want to watch.
It's just like a bunch of streams.
Yeah.
So you go through all these different categories of movies you want to watch, and then it finds a stream that has it on it. So it's like the internet.
Have you streamed sports before? Of course you have.
Yeah. Of course I have.
It's kind of the same thing.
Streaming sports is really funny because although
it's illegal and we don't condone it.
I worked at it for 2 different TV stations, right?
Right.
And I worked a block from this TV station. And I wasn't getting home till 2 a.m. anyway, and I was like, I don't need to see sports because I'm at work while it's happening and I watch it all the time.
Right.
And for whatever I couldn't get or I wasn't at work for, I had my one site. I had my stream site. It got shut down, and within 2 months it was the NBA playoffs were starting up,
right.
And I was like, I can't do this. I hate finding a good one.
I know.
To go through and 17 ads pop up, and it drives me freaking nuts. That's when I got cable again, and that was 3 years ago.
But you know what, though? Now, it's like anything with technology, right? It's rough in the beginning, but now it's getting a lot better and a lot smarter, right? So.
Yeah. So the Android box is the king of streams.
They have movies. They have so you can get they have streams, but then there's some where they just have movies. Pretty much anything you can think of is there.
TV shows, you name it.
Yeah, TV shows. Oh, so for sports, it's got Fox, ESPN, Sky. Everything, all the different countries' networks are all available, so you can watch pretty much any sport you want to watch.
Third year of college, I didn't have cable, so we just bought a Droid box.
Honestly, that's the new thing. People don't get cable anymore. Why? No, but I think you want to be able to choose.
Because I'm old.
No, I agree with you. I'm old too, so I can relate. But it's the ability to choose what you want to watch has changed the landscape of everything now, right? Look at YouTube. Much music. When I was growing up, you'd watch much music because you'd want to see the videos.
Yeah,
whatever.
Me too. All
you
the
have
time.
to sit through videos you didn't want to see or whatever.
Straight up, I remember this. I remember getting home from school, calling my best friend, and sitting on the couch, and we're both watching in our own homes Much Music, just to talk about the music video.
While it's happening.
That was while it was happening. Yep. But in the moment is all we had, unless you VHS.
Yeah,
which is also a me thing.
Exactly, so also a generational thing.
Totally record stuff and audio recordings. But in the moment, your live viewing was just that moment. That was if you wanted to tape a movie. I remember we'd find out in the TV guide, you flip through and Back to the Future's on Saturday. And so you set your timer up.
That's the genesis of on demand if you think about it really, because you would tape it so you could watch when you want to watch it. Subject of program.
So my brain with this Android box
we can see it.
It is blowing up because the one thing that traditional television cable providers, network providers had was sports and live news events.
Right.
But the Droid box just killed that for them.
Yeah.
Just murdered it.
Yeah.
It's gone. Internet viewing is the thing. Do you have cable?
Yeah. I mean, but probably literally getting rid of it. Because we just got the box. So I think it's this is the transitional period where we're okay, we don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm not a heavy TV, news. I don't watch the news. I mean, I get my news from going online.
Yeah.
I'm not a big traditional TV watcher. I'll watch shows, but when I watch, I binge.
I love binge watching.
So basically, Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I'm
not gonna start a conversation.
I haven't seen the season, so
it's okay. So what happened is, Akil Augustine, who got on the show, of course. I watched the first season of Game of Thrones, right? But for the last 5 years or so, I watched season 1. I'm like, don't talk about it. He goes, you have no right. You haven't watched since season 1. It's season 6 now. You can't ask for no spoilers, whatever. So anyways, this summer I watched 7 seasons in 8 days. I binged like crazy.
That's binge to the next level.
It was really good.
There's not even a word for that.
Yeah, so I don't do that. I don't have the luxury of doing that all the time.
That's a bender.
Yeah, it was literally a bender. So
amazing. And so now you're all caught up.
Yeah, and the irony is that, and I'm not going to do any spoilers, but
thank you. I haven't seen
every
this season.
Every season is 10 episodes, right? So I'm on episode 8, and I'm like, oh, it's getting good. And then it ends on 8, and I was like, what? So I kind of got duped because I thought I'd get 2 more episodes out of it.
Shit. You know what did that to me was Akil actually, of course, Akil suggested it to me. House of Cards.
Oh yeah,
I remember that he was like, "Dude, you totally have to see House of Cards."
Yeah,
we were still 2 weeks out from when the first season had been released,
right?
And he's like, "Dude, you totally have to watch House of Cards. It's incredible." And I don't know what had happened in my head, but I watched 10 episodes one day. I think the first season is 12. I watched 10 episodes one day.
Right.
I thought there was 6 left or something for the next day, and there's only 2. And I'm like, "The fuck is this?"
But that's why I don't watch shows when they happen.
Right,
because I hate waiting. I hate it. So because you did it and then you had to wait summer. Now I'm mad I watch Game of Thrones because I have to wait so long for the final year.
Which might be 2019 they're saying.
But everyone's like, you only had to do that once. I've had to do every single year. Everyone's dying to wait for it to happen. So
I think that is part and parcel with the change that television has taken. The renaissance they're calling of television right now, where let's take Friends, for instance, which wildly successful, or even one of my all-time favorite TV shows was House. You did not need to see the entire season.
Yeah.
Right? They're so independent. Law and Order, one of the longest running
I'm a big
dramas.
Law and Order fan.
Love it. I love all the incarnations of it. I do not need to watch a season start to finish. And when I finish episode 7, I don't need to watch 8 unless I've got shit all to do, and then I'll put on 8 if I want to just hang with Olivia Benson a little bit longer. But the change in writing in television, everyone knows it.
Yeah.
TV shows are now 10-hour fucking movies, and they are awesome movies, and that's where a lot of the money is right now. A report was just released about Game of Thrones for their final run, which I believe is 6 episodes. It's $15 million, and it could be 20.
I know.
Per?
But you look at it, and it's you can see why.
Completely, but it's incredible.
Yeah, because it's like 6 movies.
We grew up in a time, the 80s was a time when everyone in Hollywood looked so far down their noses at television. It was TV. What do you think I'm doing? Selling McDonald's? It was nowhere in the stratosphere.
You had to be doing movies was a big deal.
Now, movies are great, but you get in for 4 seasons on a fucking award-winning TV show, you're set. Your career, and you have awards coming at your ass.
Well, are you though? Because you are, but do you get pigeonholed? You know what I mean? Because I think you have to be either get the right roles or be a dynamic enough actor where people don't look at you and automatically think, oh yeah, that's this guy from this TV show.
Ooh, interesting. Because I think I can come up with examples on both sides of the coin.
Cranston is a good enough actor and he's done enough stuff where people don't look at him as Breaking Bad.
Yep.
But I kind of feel I'm not saying everyone does, but if, especially when you're so committed to a character where you really love or hate a character, like Cersei, she's so good. It's if I see something else, I'm going to see someone else.
Or am I going to see you just in this?
I see Waka shit.
That's all you're going to do? I like when my voice goes higher as I ask questions to a register I never actually speak in. Michael C. Hall, who was in Dexter, the interesting thing about Michael C. Hall is he almost played a very similar character for 13 years, or no more than that, 15, 16 years, because he was in 6 Feet Under, which was insanely interesting, and he was totally obsessed with death. And then he transitions almost straight into Dexter. Now I can't see Michael C. Hall in anything where he's happy. I just wouldn't buy it. Yeah. Someone's going to die near him or around him for me to understand him.
Waiting for it.
But True Detective, you look at anyone that they brought on board, especially Matthew McConaughey, who was brilliant in the first season.
Right.
I love Colin Farrell, who's brilliant in the second season. Or you brought up Cranston, brilliant as well, which I think everyone still saw him as the dad off of
Malcolm in the Middle.
Which his ability to flip was so quick because you're like, oh, you're the nice, wholesome dad, and now you sell me drugs.
Right. You're talking about typecasting, though. Like, I mean, I think
typecasting, ways it can go both ways for.
You mentioned True Detective, but all those guys were established, though.
True.
So everyone you see in there, you're not like they're playing a role.
Jennifer Aniston, do you still see her as Rachel?
I don't like Friends. Never been a fan. I just see her as like.
But she's had a career bigger.
Agreed.
Than just
I guess so, but
$1 million in F&F.
There's nothing she's done for me though. Like, I mean, what has she done aside from Friends that is of note? Aside from making money, I mean, I don't want to knock your personal attachments and stuff, whatever. But
I'm not a Friends fan. Actually, I'm just trying to use it as a reference point. Cool. Jennifer Aniston. Oh, you should never poke holes in the cheese of your guest. But Office Space, early 90s.
I know.
It was cult classic.
I know. I didn't see it, though. Sorry.
I'll give it to you. That's my gift to you.
I know.
It's great.
That's good, yeah.
Jennifer Aniston was in Office Space. The breakup she did with Vince Vaughn. It's not of weight.
And that's the thing. I think, and I'm not knocking it because trust me, I watch like stuff like regular stuff too.
That's all I watch.
But I think
like regular stuff. You got your smart people, and then you just got your regular people.
No, because you need that stuff. But I think I was looking at Johnny Depp as a guy who I thought could be like that actor of our generation, and I felt like he started taking a lot of the same roles. Like he was so totally Tim Burton, like a little too much. Where I felt like, okay, let's do some
years.
Yeah, like let's do some other stuff where you could still be that guy. And now it's like he's a different guy. So.
You ever see Benny and June?
Yeah, I saw Benny and June.
That's I think my first introduction to Johnny Depp.
Not 21 Jump Street,
and not 21 Jump Street. No, it was Benny and June. I think was my first introduction to Johnny Depp, and I would have been.
That's JOON.
10, 11. Yeah, JOON. Yeah. For anyone who wants to look it up. It's great. And it was right. And there's a handful of movies that I watched all that moment when you realized that this is something that someone thought about and wrote. It's not just 2 hours of film. Right? That it is this bigger concept that took lots of people. And at that point, it became so genius to me. That movie, because of the story between two people that had various quirks to their personality.
Right.
I'll give that to them. And so the acting is great. I think the directing is great. The writing is unbelievable. And just the concept, the story, I was young and impressionable at the time being like, holy fuck, someone gets to do this. It was like your moment with music. Someone gets to make up these ideas and then watch them turn into reality, whether it's you call it a hit or not a hit. I don't know how it did
it comes to
financially.
You
get to watch it at the end, which to me is the whole reason why I'm still chipping away at this big boulder. Is I just love that idea of thinking of something and being able to turn it into something.
Yeah, and executing it.
So you were with a major record label?
A few. Well, I never burned bridges. So I started with Sony Music, and I was doing like more promotion and like I was doing with the DJs and radio stations and whatnot. And then I evolved to marketing, where basically I was responsible for like, what was my first record? I'm trying to remember. I don't think it was anything great.
It'll be like some massive album. He's like, I don't think it's anything great.
No. And my first record was, I mean, like I can remember like one of the I worked the last Rage Against the Machine record, which was kind of like a big deal because, well, we didn't know it was my last one at the time, but that was like one of my first I worked like a lot of like black music hip because I knew all that stuff, right? So it's like we started doing other stuff and I got the Rage record and like they had been away for a while. And we did a private show with the Phoenix Concert Theater.
One of my favorite venues in Toronto.
Right.
Still,
so seeing Rage in there was kind of crazy, right? And those guys were like super chill and super cool. Number one record, yada, yada, yada. They broke up. Ooh. So that was a big deal for me. But I think like, so basically my responsibility was to like, okay, when are they coming to town? What are they doing when they come to town? What advertising am I buying? What rate am I buying? Am I doing like 5-way contest to see them live in LA for Coachella or something like that? So basically I was responsible for the project. And
crazy.
I worked on a lot of cool stuff, a lot of fun projects. And I worked at Sony and EMI, and I kind of got brought back to both sides. Mm-hmm. Alice in Chains, Snoop Dogg, Lenny Kravitz, Katy Perry's first couple records. Yeah, I did a bunch of stuff, man.
What did that industry unearth? What did you learn there about the industry that you're like, oh, this is, and I mean it in a positive way. I don't mean it in a negative way. When you kind of get to peek behind the curtain and see the wizard for who he is.
It's funny because when you're in it, you watch shows differently. Like you don't, I think it's kind of how we do sports, right? Mm-hmm. So like if you go to a concert, you're in the back in the corner with the other industry guys, like just talking. You're not really watching the show.
Right.
And I remember one show, Ice Cube was performing at the Warehouse. And my friend's a big fan of Ice Cube. And
me too.
We said, fuck it. We're going to go. Can I swear?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, please do.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I earned the explicit tag on this goddamn podcast.
We went to the front and pushed to the front, and we were like, it's losing our minds. But you don't do that because it's kind of don't become a fan anymore, which is one of the things I was kind of happy to get out of, because it's more like work. You're not saying, oh my God, this song's amazing. You get that, but it's like, okay, like how far is this song going to go? Is this good enough? What's the hit going to be? Where's that going to go? So you take it and you ingest it differently. We have a big thing when meeting people we look up to or respect or appreciate. People are not as good. More often than not, they're not as great as you think they are. And meeting them in different environments differs. So I met Janet Jackson. I wasn't working the record as a meet and greet after a show. Mm-hmm. So everyone came in, we had like a platinum record for her, and it's like a line of people. And it's like, hey, Janet, this is Clay. And she'd shake her hand, put her hand back in her pocket. Hey, this is Duane. And then you noticed every time she'd keep putting her hand back in her pocket like she was wiping her hands. And I was like, oh, that's not cool. Whatever, right? So whatever. That wasn't a big deal. It's like, hey, whatever. But then I was working another record with her, 3 days. Third day, we're in the Windsor Arms. We're going upstairs to do I think we had to sign some stuff, whatever, right? It's me, her, and a bodyguard. And we're in the elevator, and she taps him on the shoulder. So I'm on one side, she's on one side. Mm-hmm. And then he stands between her and the corner. So she's behind him.
Yeah.
In the corner, and it's just the three of us. And it's like, I've worked with you for 3 days. It's not like I'm not a fan, I'm not a random person. And now you want your security guard to be a buffer between us?
Really?
Yeah. Really?
I don't need anything signed. I'm not going to try to cause a wardrobe malfunction.
Yeah. So it's but then some people are super amazing.
Chill.
Lenny Kravitz was super, it was the launch of his record, and he had, everyone from all different territories around the world came to his house in South Beach, and he played the new record, and, I don't smoke, not that I care. And he offered everyone something to smoke to kind of get in the mood, whatever. Yeah. And then after the record was done, after we heard the record, he booked it the hottest club at South Beach, and we all went to go chill. And basically so buses were going, he had a Kiss pinball machine in his studio, and me and him were playing and talking, just regular, super amazingly cool, chill guy.
I would imagine that part of it is not just, whether they're pretentious or they think, and I learned this in sports.
Yeah.
When someone is closed down or removed, it's not necessarily because they want to be snarky. It's that, as we know with human beings, some of us are more adept and more willing to want to get on everyone's level and chill out and talk and learn and meet minds, and some of us don't enjoy those experiences the same way, and they might make us nervous, or they might make us question ourselves or question what we're saying, and so you just end up naturally being more reserved.
And it's also the dynamic too, because we weren't the first people she met at that meet or whatever, so it's you're just meeting a bunch of people, bang, bang, bang. But if I've worked with an artist for a couple of days,
you have some sort of rapport at that point.
Okay, I'm not this guy where I'm name dropping and stuff, whatever. But I work with Destiny's Child when the first couple records came out, and Beyonce, whatever. So if I say Beyonce right now, she'll be like, hey, what's up, Duane?
Yeah.
All right. I worked with them for a few days where it's you're just vibing with them, and you're eating with them, and you're getting to them as people. So their guards are down, like you said, right? As opposed to I'm meeting them for all of 7 minutes where they're not going to start breaking down their life to me. So yeah, the dynamics are totally different, but they're very similar in sports though too.
Completely the same in sports, and that's what I've experienced. But oddly enough, I got I want to say my second break. My first break I got when I was 18. I wrote for a magazine article, and I was over the moon. I'm that's it. I'm going to have ribbons and prizes handed to me by the time I'm 21. And you realize, no, I guess I wasn't that good, or it's just a very niche market.
Right.
But my first regular writing gig was for an indie music e-zine.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so I would get a box in the mail with 12 CDs, and I'd have to write indie album reviews. And I thought this was same as this is the shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And I still have my CDs. They take up a lot of space. And,
that's why they're in my parents' basement.
They're in my storage locker.
Right.
And I went searching for something else the other day, and I was going through my storage locker, and I opened up this box, and it is all the indie. Just the one box is all the indie albums I received. And there was some... Honestly, none of them were named artists, right? They're all up-and-comers, which was kind of neat. But as I flipped through, I'm no, there's some really fucking dope tracks on here that I really appreciated and really enjoyed. And I remember always trying to reach back out to them.
Right.
You always have to write the review. And where I worked, I didn't really get the chance to write that tough of a review.
Right.
Because they're working on their relationships with,
of course,
labels and boutique, labels and stuff like that. But if it really stood out, I always made an effort to get in touch with them and be like, yo, this track is really, really good.
Right.
I really felt like it really got me.
Yeah.
And as it does in all of our industries, if someone takes a moment and says, hey, you know what? That one thing you did really stood out to me.
Course.
You're kind of taken aback because everything's a piece of you.
Yeah.
We work in an industry, like even if you were to have 100 writers and stylists and all this stuff, you're still putting yourself out there. It's a piece of you, and you appreciate that little bit of support, even from someone you don't know.
Oh, agreed.
So there you go. Look, both writers, both started writing album reviews.
That's funny. You're right.
And then you went and met Destiny's Child. I went and landed an office job. I was working in finance, trying to figure out. I took my parents. I love my parents to death. But their piece of advice when I was like 23 was, okay, enough fooling around.
Yeah.
It's time to get a serious job now.
That was my dad.
And so I worked in a finance department and hated my life.
Yeah. My dad was like, you got to get a real job. Like, what are you doing? And my mom was kind of like really encouraging me to follow what I wanted to do.
Oh, that's
and she would like fend him off. So it kind of worked out for me. So
where did the transition happen where you got out of, because I've only known you on the sports side.
The internet. Music industry has made.
It was the industry.
So I used to work at Sony when Celine Dion was like a monster, like hit over hit. And
we were just
right. So, no, but like, it's like, so when the album's coming out this year, we're good for the year.
Right.
You know what I mean? And even at, like Nickelback, which amazed me. I mean, I'm not going to diss Nickelback because it's too easy. But like,
everyone does it for us.
So many records, and it's like, okay, they sold like 500,000 records in Canada. Like, who are these 30,000 people who just discovered Nickelback? Like, you just heard of them? Like, you had to buy the record? It's like their songs are everywhere. The industry made so much money, and really old school, and technology was really slow for them. I remember sitting in a meeting where there's a guy's like, there's this thing called Facebook, and it's happening at the university level, and they're like, and Napster happened, and the digital age happened, and they were like, we'll be fine. And every year they were cutting people. I'm like, this guy's been here for 30 years, family mortgage, no transferable skills. I'm getting tired. I can see where this is going. Give me a package. I asked for a package, and I was like, I'm going to write. I'm going to be a brand marketing agent for players and all this stuff.
Consultant, like an individual consultant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although, like, for doing basketball, although there were only 2 players in the NBA at that time were like Steve Nash and Jamal McGore, so it wasn't like now. And I was writing, and I was freelancing, writing like a bunch of like everything, because you went from 6 figures to nothing. Yeah. And my wife's like, we got a mortgage to pay.
Yeah.
So it was a grind. It was a hustle. But, built back into doing like I was doing like everything. Like I was writing. I mean, like I could write, so it was cool. But I was doing stuff I didn't necessarily want to do until I got to a point where I was like kind of really focusing. I did a lot more sports stuff, and then basketball, and then NBA.com and Slam. And then I kind of started really indoctrinating myself in the basketball community. Yeah. I mean, like I was always in a ball, so it wasn't a big deal, obviously. And
it came naturally.
Yeah, and then I ended up doing a radio show on TSN, a basketball radio show, a weekly show there, which led to the pre and post for the Raptors broadcast. And then, oddly enough, Akil Augustine's like, yo, I'm doing this show. When I do the show, I want you to be on it. It's called The Hangout. It's going to be like this. I'm like, sure, let me know what's up.
Yeah.
I knew, so the relationship I had with you, I never talked to Akil. It's so weird because we never talked. Like we knew each other we never really, it's like, what's up? We never had conversations beyond that. So it was really weird. So I'm moving my stepdaughter to University of Windsor. We're at a road stop, and I post a picture on Facebook of like a road trip. And Akil comments in the picture, I'm looking for you, call me.
Which is totally him. Because he probably lost his phone that had your phone number on it.
I go, Akil, you have my email, you have my cell phone. Yeah. Like, dude, I know. We're doing the first episode today, 3 hours from now. I really want you on it. I'm like, dude, it wasn't 3 hours, but it was basically super tight.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll try and make it. He's like, listen, I have someone back up, but I really want you on. And that was like the first episode ever of The Hangouts with me, Dan, Akil, and Dwayne Casey.
I remember it. I watched the taping of it because I was really enthused with what this was going to be.
So that was really fun. We did that, and I think they did like more episodes throughout the playoffs because it started in the playoffs that year, and that was the end of it. Yeah. And then it was the first show of the regular season. He's like, yo, we're doing the first show. I want you to come on. Cool, what time are we there? Okay, come for noon. And I got there at noon. And me and Akil still didn't really talk that much, but like, we're cool.
Yep.
The show didn't start till 2. I didn't know that though. So I'm like, okay, what are you doing? So Akil's building packs, right? Highlight packs and stuff. And then I'm like, dude, you do? And then he's like, come up with a script. I'm like, you do all this stuff? He's like, yeah, it's me. I'm like, I know the game. I can come up with storylines. I know people. We can do guests and stuff, whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll help you out. And then that's how I kind of got into the hangout where I was this producer, although I'd never produced TV before. And it was like the first, I don't know how many months, I wasn't even in the control room. I just used to sit out there and like tell Akil like what to do kind of thing, or like how to measure the conversation. And then it got in the control room and saw that whole side of it and like basically kind of learned through there. But so for me, a lot of my stuff that I was doing was not kind of like trial by fire, where it's like I was writing, which, you know, pitching and hustling and freelancing, and then the radio stuff. I'm not a radio guy like you say it, but like I was in the radio because I knew a lot of things happened for me in my life.
I love listening to you in radio. Like
you know what's funny though? Totally I'm not a big fan.
Guy. Really?
And like, dude, I mumble like crazy. Like, let's keep it 100. She's laughing because she knows. Yo, because I'm not a radio guy. Like, so I never went to school for radio. I never went to school for TV. You know, and I think even like how I got in the music industry, where it's like I understood this market, I understood this demo, and I knew how to communicate them and work it. And this is the same thing with basketball, right? Yeah. And I have a passion for it, which is kind of that's how I got into the hangout. So a lot of stuff has happened for me because of that passion and sensibility. It wasn't necessarily by design.
You used one of my favorite words, passion. And it's like, I don't want to.
You can.
I don't want to gush over the word passion.
It's a powerful word.
But it's an extremely powerful word when you use it properly, because that's what I feel like, you know, when I'm in whatever hour of my work day or whatever day straight of working. My body isn't running off caffeine, and it's not running off the junk friggin' food I've stuffed in it. It's only running off that passion. And I love being able to relate to someone who finds the exact same fuel.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't wake up and be like, oh, I have to work today. And but it's like, I know people who do.
Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
The odd day. Yeah, I'm like, honestly, I just want to Netflix and chill myself.
Oh no, yeah, I know you want those breaks, but you're never like, oh man, I've got to go to BMO and do whatever. It's like, because it's like, you know, what's the challenge going to be that day? So I've been fortunate where like I find like other things to kind of like play into that I do on the side that help kind of fuel that. So
as you spoke about the turn that happened in the music industry,
right,
we kind of are seeing and have seen a turn in the print journalism industry.
What a question.
But do you think that if everything else is taken away, if you lose the TV show and pre and post and all these things, at the core you're still a writer and you're still going to be okay?
Yeah, I think so. But I think it's changed in the sense where like, I think how the print is done, I think even like long form isn't as big a deal anymore. Like people like their information in shorter chunks. But now like producing on a TV end, like I kind of feel like it's still storytelling, right? Mm-hmm. So if I can tell, so it still allows me to do that. And I think between the fact that I'm more busy, where I don't have time to write, I think that's kind of not transitioned into it, but like I still would want to write, but this is definitely transitioned to like being able to still tell stories.
I think I could completely, everything is storytelling. And when at your core, if you can tell a story,
you can find it doing different
mediums. Median is just a median. Exactly. I could do it with painted pictures if I knew how to paint.
Or stick pictures.
Or still pictures, exactly. I was a photographer before I ever got into film and video and television. I think, though, that writing is in the spot that video was in 2007, 2008. I think it was 2004-ish.
She's not giving me the
that YouTube. Yeah, sometimes she does. I'm like, Kylie, bail me out. I'm about to look stupid. YouTube came out. Right. And then in the following, and television was already starting to die, but it really didn't have the content there. And I think even film in the late 2000s were like, we were kind of seeing an industry lull, and everyone thought short form. Everything's getting shorter. And I think we're still living off the tails of that, where there's still some people who've been in the industry who haven't really kept up, that don't see the value in long form stuff right now. Right? Why are all the good television shows going to an hour? Because you need the breadth to tell that story. Yep. And I think we can deliver news in 300 words or in 140 characters, but you can't tell a story in it. And I believe that we will see in just my belief, and hey, man, you can wait 5 years and tell me I'm wrong. I don't care. You've been listening for 5 years. That's awesome. But I think we will see the resurgence of long form written.
Yeah,
not
I agree.
like, but yeah, novels, all of that in written form.
Well, the question is,
down.
how well can you tell a story in that time? Like, you can say you can do 3 minutes or 3 hours. How well can you tell the story? I mean, Game of Thrones, I haven't read the books because it seems daunting, but like you watch the show and it's like, this is so well written. This is so great. And you can get way more depth and texture to these characters and the stories if you're reading the book. So
completely.
It's like, it's all relative, right?
And that's the joy of us kind of like floating around as these little meat sacks.
Yeah.
That I can decide that, hey, Game of Thrones is what I want to deep dive on. And you can decide that, hey, it's
Friends.
It's Friends. Did you see the Dre 4-part HBO docuseries?
Oh my God. The one with Jimmy Iovine?
Yeah, Jimmy Iovine.
Yeah.
The Defiant Ones.
Defiant Ones. Really well done.
You liked it?
Really well done.
What was interesting about it, and I kind of wondered at the beginning of the first episode, and then I'm like, yup, at the end of the fourth one, it's a 4-hour Apple commercial.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But again, here's the brilliance in all of it. Don't just make an Apple commercial because you can get paid to make an Apple commercial. Tell the best friggin' story that you have in you.
Yeah.
And a story everyone wants to hear. And yeah, we all have to monetize at a certain point in order to get, to keep our lights on of our multi-million-dollar mansion. But I was okay with it because you treated me now to all this incredible stuff. You sat down with Eminem and I get to hear him like hate being on camera, which was awesome.
Yeah, and even like funny thing even that I took out of that too is that I watched the NWA movie Straight Outta Compton, and it's like there were stories in the movie that were told in this documentary, and I mean, by virtue of being a documentary, you got to think, well, the documentary is true, but it's like how they were telling a story on how Fuck the Police came to be. And it was different than in the movie, because in the movie it's like they're in front of the place and he writes it, and so it's like there were stories in it, right? So it's like you get all these stories like you said, so at the end it's like, okay, well, I don't feel like I've been hoodwinked as much because I actually got something out of it.
Yeah. I think I heard during like right around the premiere of NWA, of Straight Outta Compton, which is, again, very high on my list of movies. It was unbelievable what they did. I heard that they actually had to like Hollywood the Fuck the Police story, which was cool when I got to see the other half of it.
Right.
It's like reading the liner notes or something. Like I had to dive in a little bit deeper, seeing Dre's side. But the one big parallel that I thought of, and which were very close, was the death of Dre's brother.
Right.
And those two stories were... Like he was, Dre was out on the road and they were in Florida and his brother wanted to come out and it didn't work, and they're on the bus when he found out and they stopped the bus and there was that whole breakdown and he didn't know what he was going to do next. Yeah. And I thought there's so many powerful stories in that. And
there's stuff that like Dre's son died like a few years ago too. Like there's like a lot of like weird things, not weird things, but a lot of so many more different places they could have went with that. But I mean, I thought it was well done.
Dre's an interesting dude. I kind of respect the fact that he's a perfectionist, even though I just want more out of him.
I know.
Right? But I kind of respect, like, and I see that, I relate to that part, especially when you're not worried about getting paid.
Well, I think that's the thing. I think if we had that ability, we had that freedom that he has, we would probably be like that, where for us, we're married to stuff. Like you're making something that's like, oh, I just want to like fix this, but you can't because it's got to be
delivered. There's a deadline.
But if you had all that money in the world where you could do whatever you wanted, you'd probably be totally fine-tuning and fixing and pruning, right? So that flexibility affords them that kind of freedom.
That's why I think it's actually kind of cool. I've always wanted to remaster old stuff that I did.
Right.
As even though it fucked up George Lucas, but you know what? I ain't George Lucas. I'm not adding some weird aliens, but...
So Star Trek over Star Wars?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, you said you're a Trekkie, so I'm trying to...
But I'm also... Okay, so Star Trek held... They were very different things for me. I never watched the Star Trek movies until way later in life.
Right.
It was a TV show to me.
Right.
Right. It was something that I watched in my living room.
You got on Next Generation, so all the other stuff wasn't even relevant.
There wasn't... It had been 6 years or whatever, or not 6 years, but it had been a while since there was a movie.
Right.
I got on TNG. It was a show that I watched in my living room, and I consumed it that way. And even with... It wasn't until the J.J. Abrams recent Star Trek release movies that I've even liked a Star Trek movie. Right. With no disrespect, I've watched them. I've watched them all recently too, the Star Trek movies, but I don't connect to them at all the same way that I connect to the TV shows.
Right.
Star Wars was, I remember watching, the first time I watched it was in my best friend's living room. It was called the green room. It was like their proper sitting room.
Right.
But the first time I watched Star Wars was sitting in their living room, and I remember talking of how they created a lightsaber for film, and that was, I knew it was film. Like, I just knew it was something different. And then they re-released in theaters episodes 4, 5, 6, and I went to all of them, and like half the crowd was dressed up, and then the opening scroll, everyone would stand up and applaud it.
Right.
That's an event. That's like seeing a concert or being in a theater and seeing a play or a musical. And then 1, 2, 3 came out, saw them all, if not opening night, right around opening night. Everyone was dressed up at that point, except I didn't dress up.
Yeah.
I would tell you if I did. I would show you pictures if I did. I wish I did now if I could go back. I just didn't have like the confidence to dress up in Star Wars gear. So yeah, I think that's where I can't put one over the other just because they hold different spots.
It's like favorite songs. Like if we take a band, like let's say NBATV, for example. I mean, I can't, like, your song is situational. Your song is a period. Your song is like where you were at that time, what your life was saying at that time. Right?
Completely.
So it's like Rolling Stones, whatever. It's like, how do you like that song? It's like, it's you. Like, how it connects with you, right? And for me, like Star Wars, I'm older, so like my mom took me to see the first one in the theater, right? I grew up through the first trilogy, and then like had the action figures and all that stuff. So by the time that next 1, 2, and 3 came out, I'm like, yeah, right. So I mean, what I'm saying is like it hits everyone differently, right? Depends on when it hits you. So
exactly, it's what age.
There's never a wrong answer.
No.
Although people will still admonish you for...
I don't know. Whatever. The wrong answer to me is when you don't like one or the other. When someone's like, fuck Star Wars, I like Star Trek. I'm like, open your brain, dude. They're both space operas.
Or fuck both of them.
Fuck those people.
I know.
Who are they? Come on. It's like 2 of the largest franchises in the world. You're going to say you hate both?
Sci-fi, though.
What are they into then?
Can't speak for them.
Sports?
Do you like sci-fi?
I have not watched Star Trek or Star Wars.
See, here we go. You just never... because how old are you? Not
22.
Yeah, so it's like there's no... What's the big connecting point, right?
Very good point. It would really...
It would have to be now, and now you're already... Like, it's just another movie. Like, if you see The Force Awakens, it's like just another movie for you. It's not like...
I'm not really into, like, sci-fi anyway.
Well,
I know.
We found them. We found that person. What are you into, by the way?
I like sports. I don't know. I like those girly movies. Don't get me wrong.
Like what? Hey, which ones? We can totally talk. I can talk girly movies all day long.
Let's go.
Bridesmaids is hilarious. Is that really girly though?
Okay, Notebook.
That's like a hardcore
Notebook.
Notebook's solid. I like Notebook. Hitch, I think rom-com is my. I've seen it like 50 plus times
right now.
No, Sweets ain't got nothing.
No, I'm not. I mean, like, so they're doing a remake of this movie. It's called Intouchables. It's a French movie. It's Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart. I have no idea what it's Kevin Hart, but it's like it's a French film. It's like really, really, really good. Basically, this guy is like this around the way. He's not a hoodlum guy, but he's just like around the way Montreal Parisian guy, and he has to look after this like rich guy. And
wait, like, which one's which? Do you know?
Kevin Hart's obviously the hood guy, right? But it's like really touching, really like different people and vibing and stuff. Whatever. Look for Intouchables, but it's probably on Netflix, as we talked about earlier and all that stuff. But it's really, really good. But I mean, I'm more like
Apple.
I don't do like romance so much. I don't know.
No?
I'm trying to think of like a movie that's a love story that I could really mess with. But
I always thought, oddly enough, that the first film I ever do will be a rom-com. And I don't know why. It's just, I think this is a bold prediction. I think I get the genre. Not in it's so simple, it's beneath me. But I connect with the emotional beats that it takes you along the way, and I can identify them. And I think I can adapt a story to hit those beats.
And I think everyone can. That's why they happen, because everyone can relate to like those kind of films, right? As opposed to like Star Wars. It's like
I've never been to space.
Yeah, and it's like,
I don't have a lightsaber.
I didn't grow up in a period where that was like the be all and end all. As opposed to everyone's been in love or had these kind of situations or dating and stuff. So.
What I love about film, though, is its ability to depict where we're at as a society at the time. We look at Star Wars came out in the late 70s.
Right.
And we are in the depths of the Cold War at the time, right? There's been kind of like a resurgence of free speech in America, but we're not that far off. We're less than we're about a decade away from the stock market crash that happens. So stability isn't still a big thing. And so you see brains reaching out to explore, right? And so you get these space movies, and that's what Star Wars' ability to even connect at that time was unbelievable.
Of course.
And it did. But it's I don't want to call it lightning in a bottle, but it becomes an expression of what one individual was feeling during that time in America, and it being recognized, I think, by the masses. And film, as you kind of chunk along and you look, they always seem to come out in like fours. You get 4 movies about this and then 4 movies about that. Yeah. But it really speaks to the fears that we have. Even like I remember Harrison Ford connection. Was he on Air Force One? Was that he played a president in one of the movies, but it was this Homeland Security scare that happened in the mid and late 90s, and you got a whole whack,
genre almost of a
whole whack of these movies where the president was in danger and he had to get himself ready and gear up and lead the country. And even Independence Day, as crazy as that sounds, the president leads the fighters into battle.
How was 9/11 for you?
How was 9/11 for me?
Where were you 9/11?
Where I was in, I was grade 12, so my final year of high school. And I was sitting in math class when it was announced.
Right.
And crazy deep subject, actually. It's crazy to go back. I don't often think of the day, but it was announced when the first tower was struck.
Right.
And popular belief at the time was that it was an error. Like at the time, in the moment, no one really thought there was some master plan going on here. And then 21 minutes later, it was announced that the second tower was struck.
So you guys didn't see it though. You guys were in class.
We didn't see it happen.
Right, you saw it.
But we were told as soon as the second one struck that we could choose to meet in the cafeteria or go home, whatever was up to us. So I went to the cafeteria and I saw both the towers fall live. Which, what are you? Grade 12? You're 17, 18 years old, something like that. Death live on TV is still not a thing I'm cool with. And that it's crazy that you bring it up because it took me to a completely different space. But that day was chilling. What about you?
I was working, but I wasn't at work yet because music industry, you don't have to get in early.
Right.
And a friend was like, "Yo, turn the TV on."
Yeah.
And the first tower got hit, and we're like, "What the hell's going on?" Like, it's free with my friends, and then we saw the next tower get hit, and our office was right by the airport, so we're like, "What's something gonna happen? Like, what's gonna happen here?" And like, no one went to work, but it was my friend of mine. He was in New York he was in New York for a show, and he was on the tarmac in Newark.
There's a Robert Pattinson movie, crazy, talking about love stories, and there's a point here.
Okay,
I promise there's a connection. There's a Robert Pattinson movie, and the name escapes me, and it's kind of his story, and he's kind of different from his father because he's more artsy and his father's more business-like. He goes through this love story with whoever, and he winds up back at the tower. You have the name?
Remember Me?
Remember Me. That's exactly what it is. And the crazy thing is the dad's out trying to be like a dad for the first time, and the son's in his dad's office trying to like make good.
Oh, wow.
And it pulls out, and it's...
Holy cow, really?
Yeah. And the reason why I bring it up, first of all, it's a great film, and he came off the Twilight movies, which is not in my genre at all. And he did this film, but it made me really think of perspective and how that's one of those fusing moments in our North American history where you can ask me like you did, where were you?
That's our Kennedy of our generation.
Yeah,
you know
completely.
What I mean? Like, where were you when it happened? Because like it was such a big galvanizing moment.
And none of us, galvanizing, that was the word I was looking for. None of us will forget, but it's a way that we can relate. And I think at a time right now where the biggest struggles, especially it seems in the States, is people's ability to relate to each other. Simple things like that exercise makes us realize that, oh, you were there.
Yeah.
I was here. Yeah. I can see it from your perspective. You can see it from mine. Where were you? You were here.
Or you've heard numbers of stories from friends or people in similar situations that you could probably relate to, or you know what I mean? So it's interesting.
Sharing perspective and just getting a viewpoint, through someone else's eyes and trying to expand our own understanding and our own learning past the end of our nose. And that to me is the power of storytelling. And not that this whole exercise was meant to bring us back to the industry we're in, but if you can help someone see something they've never seen before or experience something in a way that they never would have experienced without your help, and it motivates them to change, man, that's the most powerful tool we have right now. It's more powerful than Twitter.
Yeah, that's an ideal, of course. But if you get it, it's like, yes.
Did you see Detroit?
No, I didn't see Detroit. I didn't see it. No, I heard about it.
It's interesting. What are your thoughts?
No. Go ahead.
It's interesting because of the way they fused news footage,
right,
with
the story,
with these very cinematic, scripted, traditional scenes. But it's one of those, I didn't even know. Here I am, foolish Clayton, born in '84, still should have known this stuff. I didn't even know about the race riots of Detroit.
Right.
And to what viewpoint it was sensationalized, or to what point it was sensationalized, I don't know.
Right.
But still, I find it incredible that I gap out because I don't know, and I was able to learn something from that.
So, playing off your I didn't know and my hesitation when you asked me about Detroit, it's Hidden Figures, a movie with the black woman who were helping NASA with the...
Right.
I was mind-boggled at the fact that, like, I'd never heard of the story before. And not that I'm a black historian or anything like that, but I know enough people where it's like, how come no one knows... Like, no one knew about this movie until it was the movie was happening.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Black History Month, there's so many different stories. Some people have done stuff. Like, you kind of, like, as a black person, like, who did this, who did what.
Right.
And I'm like, how come, like, I've never heard of this before? And I thought it was great, but I was like, okay, not to make... I just found it interesting that, like, you have white people in Hollywood telling the story about these black people who helped NASA. And I was like, how come I never heard of this? And then so what happened, I'd heard some people who were predisposed to Detroit because there was more white people telling a black story. I'm not saying that white people of other ethnicities can't tell a story, but I'm not
going to try to explain childbirth to you as a guy.
So I think there's... Exactly, right? So I think there's things that, not that it's got to be more deep and heavy, but there's certain things that... and even like with Hidden Figures, I heard there was some license in terms of some things that happened because it's Hollywood. It's a movie, right? I don't know. I know about the Detroit story. I didn't see the film. But speaking of like not knowing, like that, her film can allow you to inform and educate. Even if, so it's like, you know what? I'm going to take that Detroit movie as gospel, but let me look into what really happened. Like how real was it? That's why I love docs.
Did you, this is not a doc. Did you see Get Out?
I have not seen, I haven't seen Get Out. And there's no reason why I haven't seen it. My wife's seen it like 3 times. Everyone I know loves it. There's no real reason why I haven't seen it, but I haven't seen it.
What I like, okay, so there's no spoilers. I'm not going to tell you how it ends. You can probably guess. It's in the title. But Jordan Peele did so well in the movie,
right?
Which was acknowledged. I can't speak to this, but was acknowledged by the community, is that, just as you said, there's a lot of people of one race speaking about what the person in the other race is going through. Right. And there's no real racism, you'd say, in the movie, but he kind of presents these awkward social settings.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
In which just occur.
That are accurate, that you may not necessarily pick up on, but yeah.
And it was incredible for me watching it, being like, and I can't say that I'd see you and I try to strike up a conversation about, Michael Jordan was my favorite basketball player too.
Dude, you'd be surprised. But anyways,
I believe it because
you were able to.
I watched this story told through the filter or told through the mind and the voice of someone who's lived that life.
Right.
And if he chose to make that the focal point, not someone, yelling some racial slur at him from down the road, or some cop, trying to press, his authority on him.
Right.
If that's how he chose to describe racism and difference, then you give it credit.
Yeah.
Right? And I think those are those subtleties that you were speaking to that you would like to see in
that's
other
why I
films.
really like the movie, because the brilliance of how he did it. It wasn't the obvious, like, getting pulled over, whatever. It's like, because you know what? You're desensitized to that. A cop's pulling over, something's going to happen, right? But it's like, I didn't really it's like intricacies of it all, right?
The subtleties.
Wait till the Asians North American Asians start making movies in Hollywood. Because they are like the bottom of the barrel. And it's like, hey, let's cast this Asian character as a white person or a black person or whatever.
Or, sometimes Portuguese or something.
I know.
It's
Hollywood's an interesting place.
It's a very interesting
place. But
I mean,
it's not only Hollywood now. I mean, like, I think the digital age has totally made it so filmmakers can tell their stories.
Hey, man, that's pretty much how I got a job, right? It's the affordable equipment, accessibility to it all.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for the revolution, the evolution of the industry. I do believe, though, in all things, and we think of citizen journalists, and I say that with air quotes, there's something to someone who is qualified, and I don't know what that qualification is to tell certain stories, and people who just spout. And unfortunately, the people who spout, like, why is everything an outrage now? People are outraged that, like, 1% milk is not available in there. Like, what is outrage now? So there needs to be a certain, and I don't know what that is, and I believe it's like the cream rises.
More of a voice, though, right? I mean, as opposed to like, it was an office core before, right? You're seeing the office core talking, and someone's outraged. Now it's like you go online, you go on Reddit, you go on Facebook. People, you have more of a platform to see all this outrage.
I don't know if I've ever been outraged in my whole life.
I think people who are outraged tend to be outraged more often than...
or I feel like they just don't know what outrage actually is.
Yeah.
So it's right. Like I'm outraged that I stubbed my toe on the corner of my bed. And no, my toe's sore and I feel kind of silly, but I'm not really outraged.
Yeah. You see that Vegas shit, man?
I don't know what bigger cry for reform... I'm very much an anti-gun person.
Right.
That's just my stand. And you know what? I appreciate a lot of things. Very true. Yeah. God damn it. This is what I want. I appreciate people who hunt because a lot of my family is from way up north. And I completely appreciate people who hunt. 100%. Hey, I don't shit on myself for catching a fish on a hook, right? Completely appreciate people who hunt.
Right.
I even appreciate, and I was helped to understand this, the right to bear arms, because at the core of it, it was to not allow the government to oppress and overpower the people. The people can always rise up.
Right.
I appreciate that at its core.
Right.
The fuck are you doing with these weapons that are powerful enough to cause this kind of damage, and it's in circulation? And I'm not an expert.
Let's back up, and I'm not trying to make this the conversation, so feel free to jump out when you need to, but it's the level of weapons. Like you said, hunting is cool.
Right.
Do you need an automatic rifle to hunt animals?
No.
Right. So why are these weapons, why is a weapon like that available at Walmart or wherever you can, or fine guns are sold? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I don't understand. Like, the level of power of some of the weapons that are available to, like, regular people, especially in the U.S., it's not necessary, because why are you... Only bad can happen out of someone with a semi-automatic rifle, period.
Where the NRA subscription, or whatever you call it, has benefited from, it's the same area that we talked about that Hollywood sells and the news sells, is fear.
Yeah.
And I would say, from a third party, foreign bystander, that I see an event like this and I say, well, you guys better start chucking your guns in the ocean, because this is what's going to result. But with fear on their side and the availability of arms, people, I can imagine, will say, I have to go buy myself something.
Stocks have already gone up already. And not because of that specifically. I mean, well, I can't even say, but also because if I'm an NRA guy, my fear is that the guns might not be available. So let me get more, because if they pull them away, which still doesn't bode well.
It's backwards fucking logic.
But
it's seriously, I don't, you know what? If I have a pebble in my shoe that's causing me pain every time I walk, I don't get more pebbles in my feet to even it out. I shake the fucking rock out. That's a terrible analogy, but I'm sticking with it.
It's actually not, because you're right. You eliminate it. You don't get more.
You eliminate the problem.
Yeah.
And that's, there's been, over the last, I'd say, 3 years, a lot of talk from people from Australia, because they went through that mass shooting, early 90s, I'm going to say it is, and they completely tightened up their gun laws, removed weapons from a lot of licensed carriers, and they saw gun violence plummet.
Yeah.
It's a shame. This podcast, it's not going out. We're recording this right after the tragedy in Las Vegas happened. Right. You're not going to be listening to this for a couple of weeks. So in this time, I really hope we've seen change. But this realistic side of me that kind of has watched the United States over the last, couple of years says, I'm going to say 18 months, fuck couple of years.
Yeah.
I don't think change for the good is coming.
Well, the other thing to mention is, I'm curious to see how Trump reacts to this, because he's reacted to most situations in ways that have been consistent with how he is, but not necessarily what you'd expect. So he as of right now, but last I saw, he sent a statement saying that this is
comes from a source of pure evil. What he does very well, to a fault, or you can take it either side, he plays very well to his party, to the people who voted him in.
Yeah.
He is there as an advocate for what they believe is right. I don't believe on all issues that's an advocate of what humans should think is right.
Agreed.
But he's an advocate for his party. So whatever, say it's a plus, say it's a minus, depends what side of the coin you're on, what side of the aisle you're on. But do I really think they're going to tighten up gun laws in between when this just happened and when this podcast gets released? Fuck no.
No.
Crazy, man.
Gotta find a way to make this end on a positive note.
Right?
I'm not trying to produce a podcast.
Okay.
I just feel
you know what? I need a producer, evidently, with your ability. Oh, it's just so heavy though. It's just so heavy though. And I think more than ever, and I talked to Akil about this when he was on, and I talked to a couple others about this since. I think that it's evident that shit's not worked out, and we may have been in a pocket of ignorance 8 years ago where we're like, yeah, the economy is taking a bit of a gut punch, but shit's all worked out. We're fine. We're good to each other. Shit isn't worked out. No. We got to be here for each other. We got to be here to learn more and improve ourselves. And you can't drag your heels and hold on to old ideals.
Yeah.
Because we're in an age where everyone, like I was talking to my mom the other day, she's never been to Europe, and I so desperately am trying to encourage her to take a trip with me. And I'm like, you realize first how big the world is. When you travel, you realize that there are other ways of doing things and other ways that are great to know about and learn. Yeah. But then you realize how small the world is in the fact that I slept in my bed last night and now I'm standing at the foot of the Eiffel Tower. Right? This is the world we live in, and we have never been in such a privileged state. We were 100 years ago afraid of getting the flu. That's what we were dying from. Fucking smarten up, people. Grasp what we have. It's amazing. And so just spend a little bit of time, grab onto a great storyteller, listen and read and see the things that they have produced, learn different perspectives, see it through someone else's eyes, because this world is fucking awesome, and you don't want to miss it. We only get one shot at this.
I can't top that.
Right? You can't what?
I can't top that.
You can totally top that.
No, I can't.
What I'm curious, this is changing definitely the vein. NBA season's coming up.
Oh, gosh.
This is how we know each other. This is not a sports podcast, but for all those who see that the NBA starts this week and the week this is being released and see your name beside it, they're going to expect at least one line about the NBA. Your thoughts of what we're entering?
Honestly, this is this has been the best offseason ever. Ooh, I would talk to you every week and be like, oh my gosh, I wish we had a show this week, because so much stuff happened. I mean, trades, free agency moves, the protest, Trump and LeBron.
Trump and that's amazing.
Yeah, there's so many things that have happened.
Amazing.
Lots of change. Lots of big players changing places. So I think it's going to be good. It's going to be interesting.
Is there a real powerhouse you see emerging in the East? Because Boston, I thought for a second was kind of pulling up, and then they made some moves where it's maybe you're going to be the same.
I think Boston's going to be good, but I think Cleveland's still the team to beat. I think LeBron James is still, at least on the Eastern Conference, the best player he's the best player in the NBA. Yeah. And I think adding Duane Wade is going to help. I think they're good. The question is it going to be a two-team race and everyone else behind? Right. My big concern about the Raptors is just how are they going to be in the playoffs? How are they going to begin the regular season? How are they going to fare in the playoffs? That's the key. I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, there's a lot of the good players left East to go to the West, so it's going to be really tight. Golden State, they're still the favorites, but it's going to be exciting.
They're stupid good.
I'm really curious about, though, that Adam Silver basically sent to the memo to the team saying no protest. We don't want teams protesting. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because the NBA has always been the most progressive league. But for them to say, don't do anything is kind of interesting. So I'm curious to see if anyone's going to, take a knee or doing that stuff.
SNL, I'm not going to repeat it, but SNL came back.
Michael Chan, the news, yeah.
Came back with, I believe this is 42nd season, opened up this past weekend right before we are recording this, and they went in on Michael Che had something to say about Commissioner Adam Silver, and I thought it was pretty damn funny. So check that out. If I'm having a hard SNL night, like I'm just not vibing.
You know what's
I
funny
fast
if you
forward.
think about it. It's like the way like TV's changed, and not to have another conversation, but like where political humor, like all that stuff is, and that's kind of what it was. Where like like the Dave Stewarts and the Colberts and stuff, and now it's like that's what they should try and embrace because the skits aren't funny. Really, the rating's not that great. You're hesitating when you're defending them. It's like there's nothing
I think this is what I think about SNL. I think it's an institution
of course.
In the U.S. that needs to be preserved because it is the last variety show on the air, right? Where you have skits, you have comedy, you can kind of call that Weekend Update almost stand up, right? Where it's kind of one off any of music.
Yeah, you're right.
Right. So it is a variety show that I believe is an institution that can't leave. I don't want it to leave.
Right.
I do say that I laugh less during the skits than I do at Weekend Update.
I think the cultural relevance of SNL has changed greatly because I think when we were younger, you made it if you were on SNL. Yeah. Or if this person was going to be hosting, it's like, I have to tune in. Now it's kind of like, oh, let me see the good parts online. It's like an award show in a sense where like, I don't watch award shows anymore. It's like if something could happen, I know it's going to show up online.
And then I'll see it there. Thank you very much.
Because I mean, like, you have to sit through. Because when SNL was declining, I'd be sitting through. Oh, this person's hosting. I want to see it. I want to see the skits are on. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is so bad.
I often in the sports world because you work Saturday nights, you kind of give up your weekend. It always gets DVR'd, and so that's how in the last 2 years I've gotten used to.
You watch the whole thing though?
Watching generally. I will say way more often than not. I'd say probably 80-85% of the time, just because I want to see. Now, I want to see how it unfolds. Now, I know when a skit loses my interest when I start surfing on my phone.
Right.
That happens, right? It grabs my interest. But, yeah, I'll watch the whole thing.
That's good. No.
Straight through.
That's why it's important to you.
JC was the host, or was the musical guest on the weekend.
Right.
Always nice to see him. He is my entryway into hip hop and rap, so I'm always really interested to see. It's a
connection. It's that touch point we talked about, right? Like, where is it for you, right? Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Like, if I want Jay-Z sucks, it's like, yo, Jay-Z was it for you for hip hop. Like, he's the reason why I got into it.
And I get when some people say he sold out and we went to whatever, but he was my touch point. Exactly. He's what got me into this whole world that I didn't know about before. That, again, I'm going to say, this is a perfect way to end it. Find things that you don't know about and just fucking learn them. Just figure it out. Just become educated. The greatest thing I feel in my life is that I have this desire to never stop learning. And if that means that I start in one industry and then I've got to go back to writing like you did and then develop in a different industry, hey, man, I got my brain, I got my ability to work, and I got my ability to learn.
100%, man.
Right?
Yeah.
Duane Watson, the pleasure. This is such a quality conversation. And I feel that we could do part 2 and part 3 and part 4 and part 7. We can have as many parts to this podcast with you as there are parts to Star Wars. So if you ever want to come back, please do. Before you leave, Hangout is coming back. Give it some reps. How, when, where?
Oh, man. It's weekly.
Still figuring stuff out.
Yeah, so you can really understand the stuff, but yeah, weekly, conversations, live spirited, passionate conversation about basketball on NBATV with Akil Augustine. NBA Excel is coming back this year, which is basically like inside stuff, like, stories. That's what I'm really excited about, just doing different stories.
And are you working on the NBA Excel
I'm involved
team?
I'm involved.
You're involved.
Yeah. Definitely Deto's baby, of course, that I'm helping out. And then like everything else, me, just basketball. Period.
At Duane Watson on Twitter. At Duane_Watson on Instagram.
It's the same, my friend.
Oh, at Duane Watson on Instagram. Everywhere. Thank you so much for your time. And please be good to yourself and eat your vegetables.